Imagine an empire at the peak of its power, suddenly brought to its knees. A proud sultan, once known as the Thunderbolt, is defeated, captured, and dies in a cage. His vast realm, built over a century of conquest, shatters into pieces, and his sons begin a bloody war against each other for the scraps. This isn't a fantasy novel. This is the true story of one of the most chaotic and dangerous periods in Ottoman history, the Fetret Devri, or the Ottoman Interregnum. How did this mighty empire collapse so suddenly? And more importantly, how did it claw its way back from the brink of total annihilation? Let's rewind to the year 1402. The Ottoman Empire, under Sultan Bayezid I, stretched from the Danube River in Europe deep into Anatolia in Asia. Bayezid was an ambitious and formidable ruler. He had crushed a massive crusader army at Nicopolis and even laid siege to Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. To many, it seemed like nothing could stop the Ottoman advance. But from the east, an even greater conqueror was coming. This was Timur, or as he was known in the west, Tamerlane. A descendant of the Mongol legacy, Timur had forged a colossal empire of his own, and his path was about to collide with Bayezid's. The two titans of the age met at the Battle of Ankara. It was a disaster for the Ottomans. Bayezid's army was outmaneuvered and crushed. Many of his Turkish vassals, who had been forcibly brought under Ottoman rule, switched sides during the battle, sealing his fate. The unthinkable happened. Sultan Bayezid was captured by Timur. He would die in captivity just a few months later, leaving behind a power vacuum of epic proportions. The Ottoman Empire, which had seemed so invincible, was now leaderless and vulnerable. This is where the Interregnum truly begins. Bayezid had several sons, but with no clear line of succession, the empire became their battleground. 4 of his sons would become the main players in this deadly game of thrones: Suleiman, Isa, Musa, and the youngest, Mehmed. The empire was no longer one unified state. It was fractured into warring principalities, each controlled by a rival brother. In the European territories known as Rumelia, Süleyman Çelebi established his rule. He was the oldest and initially seemed to have the upper hand. He controlled the old capital of Edirne and even had the Ottoman treasury. To secure his position against his brothers, he made peace with the Byzantine Empire and other Christian states in the Balkans, returning some of the lands his father had conquered. While this was a practical move, it was seen by many Turks as a sign of weakness. Meanwhile, in Anatolia, the heartland of the early Ottoman state, chaos reigned. Isa Çelebi established a base in the old capital of Bursa, while Mehmed Çelebi, the future restorer of the empire, carved out his own domain in Amasya. The two brothers immediately went to war. This wasn't just a royal squabble. It was a brutal civil war that tore Anatolia apart. After a series of battles, Mehmed proved to be the superior strategist and defeated Isa, who fled and was eventually killed, leaving Mehmed as the master of Anatolia. But the struggle was far from over. Now there were 2 major power centers, Suleiman in Europe and Mehmed in Anatolia. The stage was set for an even larger conflict, but a third brother, Musa Çelebi, would dramatically change the game. Musa had been captured with his father at Ankara, but was later released by Timur. He first joined his brother Mehmed in Anatolia. Mehmed, in a clever strategic move, convinced Musa to cross into Europe and challenge Suleiman. The idea was to create a 2-front war for their older brother. Musa's campaign in the Balkans was incredibly successful. He appealed to the Ghazi warriors, the frontier fighters who were unhappy with Suleiman's peaceful policies towards Christian powers. They flocked to Musa's banner. Musa was more like their father, Bayezid, aggressive and expansionist. He defeated Suleiman, who was forced to flee. In 1411, Suleiman was captured and executed, leaving Musa as the sole ruler of the Ottoman territories in Europe. For a moment, it seemed the war might be over, but Musa, now in power, turned out to be an erratic and harsh ruler. His aggressive policies and heavy taxes alienated many of his supporters, including the very Ghazi warriors who had helped him win. He even renewed the siege of Constantinople, turning former allies against him. The Byzantine emperor, seeing an opportunity, reached out to the one remaining brother, Mehmed, in Anatolia. Now, the final chapter of the Interregnum began. Mehmed, with the support of the Byzantines and many of the disgruntled Turkish nobles, crossed into Europe to confront Musa. The final battle was not just between two brothers, it was a battle for the soul of the Ottoman Empire. Would it be the aggressive, uncompromising path of Musa, or the more pragmatic, state-building vision of Mehmed? In 1413, near modern-day Sofia in Bulgaria, the armies of Mehmed and Musa clashed. Musa's forces, already weakened by defections, were defeated. Musa tried to escape, but was captured and executed. After 11 long years of bloodshed and fragmentation, the civil war was finally over. Mehmed Çelebi stood as the sole, undisputed ruler of the Ottoman domains. He became Sultan Mehmed I. Mehmed's victory marked the end of the Fetret Devri. His reign was not one of glorious conquest, but of careful reconstruction. He earned the title the second founder of the Ottoman Empire for a reason. He reunified the shattered state, restored central authority, and brought back the Anatolian principalities that had broken away. He made peace with his neighbors, including the Byzantine Empire, giving his realm time to heal and recover its strength. The Ottoman Interregnum was a profound test of the empire's resilience. It exposed the critical weakness of their succession system, a problem that would lead to the later and much darker tradition of royal fratricide, the practice of a new sultan executing his brothers to prevent future civil wars. The crisis showed how quickly the empire could unravel when central leadership failed. Yet, the fact that the empire survived at all is remarkable. Unlike other states that were shattered by Timur and never recovered, the Ottomans bounced back. This was thanks to the strong administrative and institutional foundations that had been built over the previous century. The state's bureaucracy, its military organization, and its political identity were strong enough to withstand even a decade of internal warfare. Mehmed I's careful and patient leadership laid the groundwork for the empire's spectacular resurgence. Less than 40 years after he reunified the state, his grandson Mehmed II would achieve what Bayezid and Musa had failed to do. He would conquer Constantinople in 1453, bringing an end to the Byzantine Empire and ushering in a new golden age for the Ottomans. The near-death experience of the Interregnum ultimately made the empire stronger, more centralized, and more determined than ever to secure its power. It's a powerful lesson from history. Sometimes the greatest crises forge the greatest strengths. Thanks for watching. If you found this dive into Ottoman history fascinating, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of empires rising, falling, and rising again. See you in the next video.